This right here is a 2023 KTM 690 Enduro R, and it is designed for two types of people. One is a Pacific Northwestern tech dad who rides off-road all the time. The other, morons. Now, I'm not a Pacific Northwestern tech dad, so I guess that makes me a moron. But you know what? I own it, because this is just too much fun. Now, if you watched my first video reviewing this motorcycle on the channel, you probably heard me say that this bike was built by morons for morons, and I still stand by that. And I can say that because I own this motorcycle, and I think that the folks over at KTM, if they're watching this, by the end of the day, they're probably going to agree, though they're probably not going to enjoy being called morons. I also said that this is going to be a relatively savage review, probably one of the most savage on the channel, because this motorcycle is just way too overpriced. However, there really is only one option in the marketplace right now. For now though. KTM, you got maybe 1 or 2 more years before you really need to start updating this motorcycle, because what you've got on here right now, it's only acceptable because you got a monopoly on gigantic single-cylinder enduros.
This video is brought to you by Flying Eyes, makers of the best sunglasses for motorcyclists. Their frames are tough enough to keep up with all the abuse I can dish out, yet flexible enough to be comfortable for an all-day ride. Click that link down below and get 10% off your order with code SC10.
You know, when you buy this kind of motorcycle, the first thing that you're going to learn is that the rules just don't apply to you. You can kind of go wherever you want to be. Wherever feels right, that's where you go. The second thing you realize is that you're on one of the most fun motorcycles ever made, because this thing is it's just such a fun package. We'll get into the more specific specs later, but this motor is so torquey. It's so fun and easy to rev out, and the bike is so light and flickable that even though I'm on a 21-inch front end, it rides like my old smc-r does. You definitely want to ride it like it's a giant supermoto, though I haven't built up the trust with these TKC80s quite yet. Another thing that I am noticing, a slight difference between the smc-r and this, is that the smc-r has a 4-pot Brembo radial caliper. This has a 2-pot axially mounted Brembo caliper. It's also on a 300 versus a 320mm rotor, and that makes sense because this is an off-road motorcycle. But because it rides like my smc-r does, I want to push it like it's my smc-r. And so it is relatively easy to override this brake. I have actually noticed a tendency for me to hit the front wheel ABS on this thing. I have dialed in a little bit more compression in that front shock to keep it from diving quite so much. But I do know that these suspensions, the way KTM sets it up, it's built for like a 90-pound person back here and a 250-pound person up front. At least that's according to my guy Roger, who sets up all of my suspensions. Increasing the fun factor on this motorcycle is the fact that it has a quick shifter and a blipper and a slipper clutch. This thing, it's meant to just rip around a corner, and it is so enjoyable. I don't really have that much more to add here other than it's putting a giant smile on my face. But the reason why I went with this motorcycle and not the smc-r is because this has a magic trick. Now that magic trick is right here. It's that button with map 2, which actually decreases the power on this motorcycle. And it makes it just a little bit more easygoing for some off-road riding. Now I know that I'm gonna look really nerdy going this slow on this motorcycle, but A, this is actually the only part of this review that is a first impressions, and B, I'm not wearing my dirt gear, so I do not want to eat it off-road, and the conditions out here are very wet today. Ooh, okay, those TKC80s sliding around in the mud. But this thing is definitely a lot more of a big dual sport than a little ADV bike, yet it has big ADV bike power, which is super fun to play with. Usually when I come through here on ADV bikes, especially ones that have 19-inch front ends, it's a little tough. It's hard because they just don't roll over anything. And I'm no dirt star or anything, like the wheels say. Again, that joke is going to make itself multiple times in this video. I am having fun out here. And I can tell that this motorcycle has so much to offer me. Oh my God. My tire pressure is way too high for this. Oy, oy vey, oy vey. But the fun part is, this has traction control, which does allow the rear tires to start sliding a little bit. Although in this mud, good grief, I slide going 10 miles an hour. Yeah, just look at how thick this mud is. My brand new motorcycle is gonna be all dirty. Ooh, and I'm also appreciating, good Lord, oh, it's like glass back here. I'm appreciating how much that front brake is not a 4-pot Brembo track-based caliper, because in this kind of slippery, slidey mud, I would have a really hard time. I haven't set this bike up for me yet, guys. Be nice. But that gives me a good segue to talk about some of the specs on here, because this bike is, it's not beginner friendly, and it is certainly not short people friendly. The 690 Enduro here has my favorite motor ever put in a motorcycle. It's a 693cc single cylinder that is built to rev out. Until Ducati came out with their 698 mono, this was the king of the crop because it was putting down 74 horsepower, 54 foot-pounds of torque, and weighing in at only 350 pounds. I have seen people cut weight on these motorcycles down to almost 300 pounds. It's nuts. That torque comes on so early, and it's so fun to rev this thing out. But this is for a very specific type of body style. I took this thing out to bike night and I put a bunch of my buddies on it to see who could actually touch the ground, because this thing has a 36-inch seat height. And when I've got my feet both on the ground, I can barely flat foot this motorcycle, and it is squatting down significantly under my weight because I don't have any preload in this thing yet. However, because this thing is so giant, it's really comfortable for me. I've got plenty of room on this motorcycle. I can move forward, I can move all the way back and cruise on the nice wide part of the seat, but that's really the only part of this motorcycle that really accommodates you for cruising. Now, it's safe to say that pulling onto the highway, this is the last place the Enduro R wants to be. It's not that it can't do it, it's just that it's not particularly comfortable. I don't know how KTM managed to do this, but they managed to work in low frequency pulses and high frequency buzz. It's magical. Also, if you're on this motorcycle for an extended period of time, you do realize how much this seat really is just like a sawhorse. If you sit right in the middle, it's pushing, it's lifting and separating in ways that are not entirely comfortable. I'm gonna just say that right now. You really need to be riding either on one cheek or the other. That's the real way to be comfortable on one of these motorcycles, is you're switching cheeks. No wind protection to speak of here, and one of the things about a bike this tall and this light is you're actually a lot like a sail at high speeds. So I don't tend to really like to run high speeds on this thing because I'm just getting blown around. Again, it's not that it can't do it, it absolutely can. Like here, I'm just going up to 80, 85, 90, where's 90? There's 90. See, totally can do it. And it doesn't seem like it's upset getting to 90 miles an hour either. It just takes a little while because it's a single cylinder motorcycle. But it does have some instability. Some of that is definitely down to the fact that I don't have the suspension set up right. The rear is not set right for me. But even when I had my smc-r set up right, it tended to wobble and wander, especially on roads that have those concrete sipes down the middle of it. On this, it would be even worse. Now, here's the thing. I'm not really going to hold that against this motorcycle. They are drawbacks, but it's inherent in the design of this platform.
Now, I wish that's where the problems ended on this motorcycle, but it's not, and it is officially time for me to tear this motorcycle a new dirt star. That's what's written on the rims. How did that get past QC? Did nobody in marketing Google that? Seriously? But anyway, there are a myriad of issues with this motorcycle because at $13,000, this thing has some serious oversights. First of all, this dashboard right here, this is a Trail Tech dash, and I know for a fact that it costs $130. Don't lie to me, KTM. I don't care what you have to say. That's a Trail Tech dash right there, and I'm not asking for a TFT display. But why don't I have an RPM counter? Why don't I have a gas gauge? Why don't I have a gear position indicator? That's all stuff that would be really nice on this motorcycle. And you know who has that? Ducati. Also, 12 grand, no backlit controls. CF Moto has backlit controls and you work with them. This is a bike that you're gonna get caught out at night on, 100%. And it's really nice to know where your buttons are, just at a glance. Why? Why are they just these cheap old clusters? And while we're on the clusters, why isn't there cruise control on this motorcycle? I know it's got a ride-by-wire system. I know it's got a really nice ECU with traction control and rider modes. Why hasn't this thing been updated with cruise control? I know it'd be a little bit weird, but a lot of motorcycles have cruise control that you wouldn't think have it now, like the BMW S1000 RR. Surely a motorcycle that people are turning into a baby ADV bike would benefit from having cruise control. There's also a lot of cheap parts on here. Incandescent bulbs, KTM, really? I know that in Europe, you put LEDs on them. Why do we have a different SKU here in the States? Other manufacturers have LEDs. Just put them on the damn bike. Also, no bark busters, really? We just have a hand guard? Like, that's only good for wind. This isn't a bike you're taking off-road. This is what should be on the SMC-R, and we should get that plastic wraparound grip. I know that a lot of people are gonna put bark busters on this motorcycle, but a lot of guys are also just gonna run right out and take it off-road. Why not give them something? You already have the parts for the SMC-R. Just put them on this. And last but not least, KTM. Why? Why does this motorcycle that has just a little over 100 miles, why is it leaking oil? Also, I'm looking down and I noticed that the little foot peg wing guard on there, yeah, that's vibrated free. Here's the reason, and I said it at the top of the video. KTM, they don't have any competition.
I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, what about the DRZ 400? Yeah, okay, the DRZ 400 has 40 horsepower and 30 foot-pounds of torque, something like that. Weighs in at 317 pounds, costs $7,300, and is still carbureted. This thing is way outside the DRZ's league. The DRZ can't even approach this thing. Now, there are people out there who are going to prefer the DRZ because it has that carburetor. It's cheaper, and you still have a fully adjustable suspension and a lot of goodies on it. And it's also way more reliable than any KTM ever hopes to be. I would not want to use this as my apocalypse motorcycle, but we don't live in the apocalypse, no matter what the people on TV tell you. There are rumblings that Kawasaki may be bumping their KLX 300 to a 400. That would actually be kind of nice. But still, it's going to play in the DRZ territory, not in the 690 territory. Okay, you're going to say, well, Gas and Husqvarna, they're the same thing. They're the same goddamn motorcycle. I checked all the VIN codes while I was actually buying this. I was waiting for some of the paperwork to get done. And all of the VIN codes start with VB, which is the code for Austria. Every single one of these motorcycles is built right next to each other in Austria. They're the same motorcycle. There are some very, very minute differences, and the KTM only comes with a 1-year warranty versus the Husqvarna's 2-year warranty, and the Gas is 2-year warranty, but this thing has an R in the title, so that's why I only get a 1-year warranty, baby. Now, we do have to talk about upcoming competition, because there is no way in hell Ducati is going to sit on their 698 Mono Supermoto and not make an Enduro out of it. Anybody who works at Ducati is going to be under NDA, and they're not going to be able to confirm this, but it's coming. And I would be stunned if we don't hear about it EICMA 2024 or 2025. It's basically an open secret at this point, and seeing as how the Ducati is $500 less expensive than the smc-r, if the price model holds, the Ducati Enduro is going to be $500 cheaper than this with more stuff on it. So yeah, I'm going to get that motorcycle. KTM's only got like 1 or 2 more years that they can really milk this motorcycle without making some real changes, which means that I bought at the end of this motorcycle's generational life cycle.
Knowing all of that is why I say you have to be a moron to buy one of these motorcycles. But again, it's the only thing out there. And for what it is, this motorcycle is so much fun to ride. And if you go out there and get yourself a set of 17-inch rims for this, you get all of the fun of the 690 smc-r, the 698 Mono, in a package that can also go off-road. I think what really needs to happen is we need to have a Japanese company come out and make one of these motorcycles. Make a gigantic, liquid-cooled, single-cylinder motorcycle that revs out like this, so that we actually have some real competition in this space, and it's not just the European manufacturers. Because when just the European manufacturers are hanging out by themselves, they get up to some really stupid shenanigans. But you know what? Despite all of my problems with this motorcycle, I'm willing to overlook them because it's just a ton of fun. And you know what? I am gonna replace those handguards with actual bark busters. I am gonna replace the mirrors. And I am gonna probably put a Compan dashboard on there so I get my RPM, my gear position, and all of that good stuff. It's just a real shame that at this point in 2024, I have to do all this work myself. Let me know all your thoughts on the 690 Enduro R right here. Did I make a stupid choice buying this motorcycle? I'm sure a lot of people down in the comments are gonna say yes, but you know what? You gotta live and let live. You only live once, and this thing speaks to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.